Aliens paying us a visit from another star system? What's up with that?
A strange object has entered our cosmic neighborhood. It does not orbit our sun. It does not follow the familiar paths of other planets or comets. Asteroids do not behave this way. This is a rare interstellar traveler.
For generations, humanity has searched the heavens, not just for distant planets or faint radio whispers, but for the impossible, the anomalies, the moments when the universe itself bends the rules, when something appears in the dark that should not exist. And now, the James Webb Space Telescope may have stumbled upon the most chilling anomaly yet. What began as a simple observation of the third interstellar visitor ever detected in our solar system, an object cataloged as 3IATLAS, has spiraled into a revelation far stranger, darker, and infinitely more unsettling. Because out there, in the cold silence beyond Mars, Webb picked up something that froze scientists in disbelief. Not reflected light, not natural brightness, but a glow, an artificial light, shimmering in ways no comet, no asteroid, no known body of physics could explain. A pulse of illumination that does not scatter, does not fade, but lingers with intention. Astronomers now find themselves asking the question they've spent their lives both chasing and fearing. What is 3IATLAS really? The object was first spotted as nothing more than a ghostly fleck against the starry horizon, drifting on a trajectory no solar-born object could follow. Its path gave it away. It was interstellar, born beyond the sun's dominion, hurled through the void by forces we cannot name, now wandering silently into our cosmic backyard. At first, scientists dismissed it as just another curiosity, like Oumuamua before it, like Borisov after. But even in the earliest data, something about 3IATLAS was unsettling. Unlike any interstellar object we've studied before, 3IATLAS burned with a brilliance that defied logic. Its brightness did not match its size, its surface, or its expected chemical makeup. Instead, it shimmered with an eerie consistency, neither dimming as it should, nor flaring with the chaotic bursts of gas and dust that betray a comet's frozen heart. Normal comets brighten in sudden outgassing eruptions, as ice sublimates under the sun's touch. But this object remained steady, uncannily steady, as though its light was being powered from within. Astronomers across the globe swung their instruments toward it, hoping for clarity. And then came Webb. The James Webb Space Telescope, stationed a million miles away at the Earth-Sun Lagrange point, was built to uncover the hidden, to pierce through the blinding glare of stars and expose secrets lurking in the darkness. Scientists expected its gaze to resolve the puzzle of 3IATLAS once and for all. Instead, Webb deepened the mystery. Its instruments revealed something no comet should possess, a central thermal emission glowing from deep inside the object. Not sunlight bouncing off its surface, not the chaotic scatter of dust and ice. This was light radiating outward from its very core. Even stranger, the thermal mapping traced a distribution unlike anything cataloged in nature. Not random, not chaotic, but structured, almost deliberate. A heat signature patterned as though designed, pulsing with a rhythm that suggested order where there should only be disorder. And with that revelation, 3IATLAS crossed an invisible threshold, no longer behaving like a mere rock adrift in the void, but like something far more deliberate, far more alive. It pulsed, faint, irregular, unsettling. And yet, beneath that flicker was something far more disturbing, a rhythm, not random, not chaotic, but repeating in cycles, as though following a hidden clock. At first, scientists scrambled for natural explanations. NASA teams suggested radioactive decay. ESA researchers proposed friction beneath the surface or exotic isotopes never before encountered. But one by one, those theories crumbled under the weight of mounting data. The possibility no one wanted to write down, the one whispered only in late-night calls between researchers, began to take shape. 3IATLAS might be powered. As data poured in from Webb, from Hubble, from observatories across the Earth, a portrait of this interstellar visitor came into focus, and it looked nothing like any known celestial body. Its path through space was too precise, too intentional, as though it was actively choosing its route. It skimmed along gravity wells with delicate adjustments, like a pilot steering through cosmic currents. Its rotation told an equally bizarre story. Instead of the chaotic tumbling of comets, 3IATLAS spun with unnatural stability, holding steady against forces that should have torn it off balance. Even when brushed by the harsh radiation near the sun, it revealed no cometary tail, no plume of gas or dust, suggesting a protective shell, a casing shielding it from the star's wrath. And then came the discovery that shattered the last illusion. Its surface reflectivity, its albedo, was measured at values approaching perfection. Not dust, not ice, not stone, but something closer to polished metal gleaming in the void. The implications thundered through the astronomical community like a shockwave. If it was metallic, structured, and radiating energy from within, then we were no longer staring at a natural object. We were no longer observing a rock or a comet. We were observing technology. And with that realization, a word began to echo through the quiet corridors of scientific institutions. A word once confined to conspiracy forums and late-night talk shows: probe. Others whispered beacon or even artifact. Suddenly, the unthinkable was no longer unmentionable. Behind encrypted firewalls and hushed internal memos, the possibility was being acknowledged. 3ISATLAS might be a spacecraft. And the most damning clue wasn't its metallic sheen, its precise trajectory, or even its strange inner glow. It was the light. Photometric analysis revealed something chilling. The emissions from 3ISATLAS weren't a broad, messy reflection of sunlight. They were focused, sharpened into a narrow spectrum band. Controlled light. Exactly the kind of signature we produce with LED arrays, with laser communication, with spacecraft beacons. Even more unsettling, that band overlapped with frequencies humanity itself uses for communication and navigation. It was as if this thing was speaking in a language we almost recognized. And then came the behavior no natural object could mimic. The light shifted. It flickered, not randomly, but responsively, adjusting ever so slightly as solar radiation intensified, as if some hidden system were actively regulating it in real time. Astronomers fed the pulses into every known signal model. The results were inconclusive, but they weren't meaningless. Some saw echoes of binary code hidden in the rhythm. Others argued it resembled a rotating power system. But across the debates, one conclusion grew impossible to deny. This was not a passive object drifting through our skies. It was active, it was deliberate, and we were watching it unfold in real time, data pouring in like a transmission from the abyss. At MIT and Harvard, a team of astrophysicists launched a deep signal analysis on the electromagnetic emissions radiating from 3I/ATLAS. At first glance, the spectrum looked like chaos, random static, meaningless noise. But when they applied advanced Fourier transforms to peel back the layers, something impossible emerged. Beneath the static, like a hidden whisper beneath a storm, was a structured, repeating pulse, too precise to be random, too deliberate to be natural. It wasn't binary in the way humans use it, nor did it mimic any modulation common to Earth's technology, but it carried the unmistakable fingerprint of encoding, of design. Theories ignited instantly. Some scientists argued it was a beacon, an automated broadcast sent endlessly into the void, meant for receivers not of this world. Others suggested telemetry, a constant data stream, updating someone or something on its position, its condition, its mission. But the detail that chilled investigators most was this: the signal never changed. From the first detection by Webb to the most recent observation, the broadcast remained identical, static repetition, as if 3ISATLAS was not speaking to us at all, but to someone else. And perhaps that someone had already answered. News of the discovery spread like wildfire through classified channels. A confidential NASA report, marked for internal eyes only, quietly circulated to defense agencies across the globe. But secrecy never holds forever. When fragments of that report leaked to an unnamed journalist, the world learned the truth. Top officials weren't just studying 3ISATLAS. Some scientists clung to optimism, arguing that 3ISATLAS might be harmless, an ancient probe, perhaps centuries or millennia old, drifting on a pre-programmed path across the stars. But others weren't so comforted. They asked the questions no one wanted to hear. If it's transmitting, who is on the other end? If it radiates controlled light, does it also carry propulsion? And most disturbing of all, if it was sent here by design, then why now? The leaked report raised a possibility that froze even seasoned analysts. 3ISATLAS might not simply be a wanderer. It could be an observer, tracking planetary alignments, measuring magnetic fields, or worse, monitoring advanced civilizations. That thought spread panic like wildfire behind the curtain of secrecy. Because if this object was here by design, it might not be alone. And if it wasn't alone, then something else could already be on its way. Further analysis of its luminosity only deepened the enigma. Webb's instruments revealed that 3I/ATLAS wasn't merely emitting energy, it appeared to be harvesting it. Its glow shifted subtly with its distance to the sun, as though feeding on solar radiation. Even more unsettling, the absence of typical cometary chemistry supported a radical theory. Embedded within its surface might be a solar collection array, or a photonic absorption system, silently refueling as it drifted from star to star. Avi Loeb and other bold theorists proposed an even stranger twist. The faint dust cloud trailing the object could serve a dual purpose: camouflage, concealing its artificial skeleton beneath a natural veil, and collection, acting as a vast net to capture energy and particles. If true, then 3I/ATLAS is not a rock, not a comet, not a relic. It is a machine, self-sustaining, self-repairing, designed for the eternal journey, a craft built to cross the infinite dark, feeding itself as it moves from one star to the next. The idea fit eerily well with existing theoretical models of interstellar probes, machines built to slumber in the void for centuries, even millennia, until they reached a star system worthy of study. Then, and only then, would they awaken. And if our solar system had triggered that awakening, then somewhere, somehow, the message had already been received. As international agencies scrambled behind the scenes, one truth loomed larger with every passing day. We are not ready. Despite decades of speculation about extraterrestrial contact, our political systems, our scientific frameworks, even our philosophies are utterly unequipped to process what 3I/ATLAS may represent. No official announcement has been made, and yet, documents quietly leaked from agencies in France, Japan, and Brazil all pointed toward the same chilling conclusion. This object may not just be an anomaly, it may be a first encounter, unfolding in agonizing slow motion. But unlike the stories we grew up with, there was no sudden landing, no gleaming saucer blotting out the sky, no broadcast greeting humanity in 1,000 voices. There was only data, only silence, only a steady pulse of light that refused to explain itself. Webb continues to watch the object every single day, and yet, with each answer it provides, two new questions arise, deeper and darker than the last. Because if this is contact, it is not happening on our terms, it's on theirs. Distant, quiet, unnervingly patient, and that may be the most terrifying truth of all. What we are witnessing may not be an invitation, it may be surveillance, and if so, then we are no longer the observers. We are the observed. Just when astronomers believed 3I/ATLAS had settled into a predictable path, the object shattered expectations once again. Then, without warning, its light erupted. The luminosity of 3I/ATLAS spiked in a way no comet, no asteroid, no natural body ever could. This wasn't a slow brightening as it neared the sun. It was instantaneous, a violent flare captured live by Webb and confirmed by observatories across the globe. In less than 2 minutes, its brightness surged by nearly 40%, then locked into a new, elevated state. No natural explanation could account for it. There was no solar windstorm, no collision, no disintegration event. It was as though a hidden switch had been thrown, and with the flare came something even stranger, a shift in its thermal profile. Heat signatures bloomed across the object, not randomly, but in patterns, as if systems had powered on. Theorists whispered the most chilling possibility yet. 3I/ATLAS had entered an awakened phase, either triggered by its approach to our star, or by something far more unsettling, by us, by our act of watching. And if that flare was deliberate, then it wasn't just a system booting up. It was a signal, a message meant to be seen. And then came the confirmation that froze entire mission teams in silence. Orbital data from multiple space agencies revealed that 3I/ATLAS was no longer following its predicted course. The deviation was subtle, but undeniable. Gravity could not explain it. Radiation pressure couldn't explain it. No natural force added up. This was a maneuver, a decision. And most terrifying of all, its new trajectory was not random. The shift carried it deeper into the solar system, altering its inclination, angling it closer to the very plane of Earth's orbit. 3I/ATLAS was no longer just a passerby drifting on a cosmic tide. It had changed lanes. Some scientists urged caution, trying to explain the deviation away as a gravitational quirk, but others saw it for what it likely was, a maneuver, a deliberate course correction, something no comet, no stray rock had ever performed. If it could navigate, even in the most limited sense, then this was no relic, this was a vessel with intent. As it slid within range of Webb's spectrographs and Hubble's sensors, the data revealed something even more unsettling. Embedded within the light were chemical fingerprints, traces of alloys with unnaturally high reflectivity, clusters of rare earth elements, and most shocking of all, absorption lines belonging to compounds that had never once been recorded in Earth's periodic table. These were not the fingerprints of frozen debris. They were engineered, fabricated, forged in conditions that do not occur in nature. One spectral profile in particular shook the community. It mirrored compounds once proposed only in theory, substances imagined in quantum material labs, said to exist only under crushing magnetic fields or within the confines of quantum entanglement chambers. And yet, there it was, written in the light from 3I-ATLAS. This discovery carried two equally terrifying implications. Either the object was impossibly ancient, predating human civilization by tens of thousands of years, or it was recent, the product of a civilization so far beyond us that its technology borders on the incomprehensible. In the end, the message didn't have to be decoded. The messenger itself spoke volumes. The materials, the alloys, the impossible compounds, all of it screamed one truth louder than any signal ever could. 3I-ATLAS is not natural. Governments began to move, not with public declarations, but with quiet urgency. Observatory networks saw sudden upgrades to encryption protocols. Research teams vanished into classified reassignment. Satellites across multiple continents shifted into unexplained recalibrations. And behind closed doors, spacefaring nations convened emergency sessions, crafting contingency plans for a future no one had ever truly prepared for. One leaked document from an international defense consortium laid bare the darkest suspicion. 3I-ATLAS might not be a solitary wanderer, but a scout. Its stable rotation, its engineered structure, its endurance across interstellar distances, all pointed to the design of a long-range probe. But if it was scouting, what exactly was it searching for? And more disturbingly, what might follow? From universities to military bunkers, one chilling consensus began to form. Humanity had achieved its first contact, but it was not a dialogue. It was an evaluation. As whispers of panic spread, a bold decision came from the SETI Institute. While governments hesitated, SETI scientists dared to act. They transmitted a concentrated radio pulse directly toward 3I-ATLAS, embedding universal mathematical constants, the periodic table of elements, and simple pictorial representations of humanity. A cautious offering, a handshake extended into the dark. Days passed. Silence. A week dragged by. Still nothing. The message seemed destined to become another unanswered echo in the void. But then, on a quiet night in Chile, a monitoring station captured something strange. A narrowband pulse, distorted, off-frequency, but unmistakably deliberate. It wasn't a message in words. It wasn't an echo. It was a ping, simple, precise, yet carrying just enough variance to prove it wasn't a passive reflection. It had been received, processed, and intentionally sent back. But the detail that rattled the SETI team most wasn't the content of the signal, it was the timing. The reply arrived exactly 72 hours after transmission, to the second. That meant something out there had not only intercepted our broadcast, it had measured, calculated, and chosen to answer on its own terms. In the hours that followed, strangeness rippled across the world's observatories. Webb's infrared instruments, flawless since launch, began returning erratic thermal maps. Hubble's gyroscopes registered unexplained microfluctuations despite holding steady orientation. Ground-based telescopes reported misaligned star charts, pixel distortions, frozen data streams, each anomaly occurring only when their instruments locked onto 3I-ATLAS. At first, these were dismissed as glitches, calibration errors, software faults, but the pattern became undeniable. The interruptions were synchronized, clustered in narrow windows of time, too precise to be chance. It was as though someone, or something, was interfering. Not blinding us completely, but reaching out with a careful hand, obscuring only what it chose to hide. Within the European Space Agency, a classified Black Ops think tank put words to the fear everyone else had been avoiding. 3I-ATLAS wasn't just transmitting, it was jamming, selectively, strategically. The implications were staggering. A passive traveler drifts openly, leaving its mysteries bare for all to see. But a scout hides. If 3I-ATLAS was controlling what we could observe, deciding when and how much light to reveal, then we weren't truly watching it at all. We were being permitted to. And then came silence. In the days following the signal event and the cascading technical failures, updates from Webb slowed, then stopped. Data once streamed freely across public servers was suddenly delayed, restricted, or rerouted into classified channels. The European Space Agency issued only a vague statement about instrument recalibration. NASA stopped commenting entirely. Even the world's most respected journals, those that had tracked every anomaly, began retracting their stories, replacing them with sanitized summaries stripped of detail. The astrophysics community fractured. Some clung to hope, convinced the agencies were simply verifying the discovery before a proper announcement. But others saw the darker truth, that the answer had already been found and buried. Independent observatories tried to resist. A handful released raw data streams directly to the public, but almost immediately they were drowned in a tidal wave of noise. Misinformation, conspiracy, deliberate disinformation, flooding forums and feeds until truth itself dissolved into static. What began as humanity's greatest scientific mystery had been rebranded as something else entirely, a strategic asset, and history has taught us what happens when discoveries fall into the vaults of governments. Truth doesn't emerge, it suffocates. In a final desperate push to decode the enigma, a coalition of astronomers and mathematicians abandoned the search for words. Communication was no longer the goal. Instead, they turned to pattern recognition and probability theory, hunting not for messages, but for intent. That's when they uncovered the most terrifying pattern of all. When the path of 3IATLAS was plotted against the positions of planets, its trajectory revealed a Fibonacci arc, the golden spiral, the ancient ratio of proportional beauty woven into seashells, galaxies, even DNA. A spiral so fundamental, it often underpins human attempts at universal communication. And it didn't stop there. The timing of its flares, its subtle course corrections, even the delay of its return ping, all correlated with prime number sequences. The odds of such a convergence happening naturally were vanishingly small. These patterns were not chance. They were chosen. It meant one thing. 3I/ATLAS wasn't merely passing through. It was navigating with mathematical precision, following not a random drift, but a map, a schedule. Among the theorists, a new and unsettling idea began to spread, spoken only in whispers at first. What if this wasn't a probe at all? What if the object itself was the message? Not words, not symbols, but action, behavior as language, trajectory as syntax. And in that framework, humanity had just deciphered the first word. As the chaos of theories and debates settles into silence, one truth cuts through the noise like a blade. 3IATLAS was never a rock. From the unnatural light it radiated, to the signal it returned, to the alloys laced through its skin, to its deliberate change of course. Every fragment of evidence points toward a single, impossible conclusion. We have not been alone for a very long time. Perhaps we were never meant to be. The James Webb Space Telescope, built to glimpse the birth of galaxies, may have instead captured something far more unsettling, something designed to look back, not distant, not abstract, but ancient, deliberate, and waiting at the very threshold of our own celestial neighborhood. And yet, silence. The agencies will not speak. The data is sealed away. Humanity, it seems, has been deemed unprepared for the truth, but the light was seen, the path was tracked, and the question now hangs heavier than ever. What happens next? Was 3IATLAS nothing more than a cosmic cataloger, pausing to record our fragile world before drifting back into the void? Or was it the first of many, an advanced scout, a probe marking the way for something larger, something waiting for its signal to arrive? In the end, it may not matter whether 3IATLAS was a machine, a message, or something altogether stranger. What matters is that it came, it watched, it responded. And now, somewhere in the cold, eternal dark, something may be shifting its gaze toward us, the blue planet that blinked first. The countdown may already have begun. And once again, the universe reminds us, we are not the center. We are the observed. If this story shook you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment below with your thoughts, because the more we look into the dark, the more the dark seems to look back. And I'll see you on the next one.